Sastry, National Business Head, Mobile Banking and Mobile Commerce at Aircel. I request Sir to kindly come up on the stage. Sir has over 25 years of experience in telecom, IT and IT services industries, holding several key leadership, CXO and managerial roles. At Aircel, Sir drives revenue market growth, customer acquisitions and revenues. Sir oversees various functions such as strategy, sales, marketing, business development, product services development, business solutions, field operations, after-sales services, customer support, and customer operations nationally for this business. Sir has also participated in over 200 CXO seminars and conferences in both India and abroad as a speaker, keynote presenter in various thought leadership subjects. He writes for professional journals, magazines, and publications in the area of telecom, technology, and IT services. Sir, we welcome you to Communiqué15. I request Sir to kindly preside over the session.
Good morning. I think Dhanji did a great job of, evoking the right emotions and setting the stage for the day. Congrats, Dhanji, for the great job done by you. Anyway, I think firstly I would like to thank the organization here, Symbiosis, for inviting me to share some of my thoughts with all of you. This is the second time I think I'm participating in this event. The last time was in 2007, was in different campus, and I must congratulate that this is a lovely, place where you have this campus now. The ride itself, right from the place where I'm staying and up the hills, was really spectacular. I think this is one of the fine campuses I have been. Very different than a similar venue which I visited around 2 weeks back, which was in Delhi, the Institute of Foreign Trade. Very different out in the town and things like that. Anyway, so Dr. Sunil Patil also mentioned that there was less time for, interactions and questions. So I thought I will, and I was actually asking some of the students who have interacted during the last 2 weeks to coordinate my travel here. And I wanted to know what would make sense, because I've worked for the last 10 years in, in telecom industry, and I'm sure I can at least keep going for at least 10 hours to bore you to death. And there is so much of which has happened in the last 10 years. So I think the way I would like to go about, if you guys are okay, maybe speak for 10, 15, 20 minutes, share some thoughts, share some of the mega trends, things what's going to touch us in the future, what things are happening, especially in the areas where I've worked or in the areas which I'm trying to work in at the moment. And then, invite really more questions from you people. I don't know if you had that opportunity yesterday, but the short interactions I had with your placement coordinators back in my office and others yesterday and today, I think there would be a lot of questions you would like to ask for me to share my own experiences about the telecom industry, what kind of roles you want to get in, what do you want to do, what are the challenges, where are the opportunities. So I would be very happy and to be helpful there, share my own bits of information and experience, which you can again put in together what you hear from outside and others, and plan for yourself. I think it's going to be a very important part of your academic career for the next few months as you move out of this campus into the real world, And that's, as they say, it's really very different, right? So with that, I thought, as Dhanji said, the biggest rule is there is no rule. And he said that speakers like us are like compass who are showing you different directions. And you get a chance to pick up a direction and go in that direction. And today, the world, as we see, all directions are good. I mean, it depends on your individual choice. 20 years back, one direction was west. Everybody here in India would want to head west. I seen very different things now. There was, I think, the last 5 years or 10 years when people were moving from west to east. But what I see now differently is the evolving, Africa as a continent. So it was not just people traveling from US and Europe into India and Japan and China and Singapore. Now more and more, innovations are happening in Africa. And I think that is really driving some of the regulatory, challenges which we face in this country, both on the banking side and also on the telecom side here. So thanks again for inviting me. So as somebody has mentioned earlier to Telecom, I was working with Xerox, which was a long stint. And the last few years were very interesting because we were looking at unstructured data and how do you help get that unstructured data into your ERPs and CRMs so that you are able to serve your customers more effectively. And things have changed so much from there in the last 10 years, right? Evolving connectivity, unfolding opportunities in the digital world. I think that's the theme which we are, set ourselves for these 2 days. And let me see how close I stay with this particular theme when I share some of the, thoughts. Very close to like smart cities, monetizing big data, the financial services coming on the mobile and revolutionizing the digital M2M. If I look at it critically, if you put yourself at the 20,000, 30,000 feet, connectivity is no longer the availability of a network, which is what was driving some of the KPIs. So connectivity per se is not that, do I have a presence of a network there? Is that network? Even today, when you look at the government and TRI, I don't know if the TRI person spoke yesterday about it or not. The way even today telcos are measured on connectivity, or have we rolled out what is called the minimal rollout obligations. It is only a certain area in a particular, SDCA, what we call as a rural area, where connectivity is available. However, the metrics are changing very fast, and I think the new government has really unveiled its objective of making cities smarter, taking this whole ubiquitous coverage to the next level. So as I believe that access per se is only one of the parameters which is important. I think the second part of it is quality of this access. And when we speak about quality, there is this whole thing about openness, and and earlier this year we got into this whole big debate, which is still going through the world, is about the net neutrality. Airtel did try an experiment, Airtel Zero, which was, I thought, a very unique way of monetizing some of their asset, and it opened a whole can of worms. We are not yet concluded on some of those aspects of net neutrality, but I feel, and the net neutrality OTT versus the telco OTT people who are making more money than the telco who make the investments. I think that debate is going on, and I'm sure sooner or later we will arrive at some mid path, which will eventually be beneficial to the society. So apart from the access, speed is an important one, price is very important, and given a regulatory kind of an environment we are in, consolidation, if it happens in the industry, prices will go up. Then the question of affordability of a certain bandwidth and data, especially not in metros, but in remote areas, will become an important part of this whole subject of connectivity which we speak about. The ubiquity of connectivity is very important even today. I think it's a big challenge. Telcos blame on the spectrum. The network costs are amazing. The ROW, which is the fees which the government, which private players pay to the government to, lay the particular network, is also a big, question of debate at the moment, which is going on. All of this is driving up the price of connectivity, and hence the ubiquity and reliability is really another aspect which is still not really settled. And I think the third would be the available services. So when we speak about connectivity, services is very important. What do you do with the high bandwidth network available in a particular rural area if the services are not available, right? And if you look at all the innovations which are happening, all the startups which you hear about, is all about your key clients being in the top 20, top 50 cities. But we have top 200 smart cities coming up. How do you make services available for that particular category of customers? I think that's going to be an important, area where a lot of innovation will happen. A lot of examples we see, I don't know if you people have heard about Khan Kaju rotation. I think a very interesting experiment done. Most of you would have heard about it. Now, if you look at that particular, you know, a model of reaching to a particular need of a particular society, and you can build a lot of models around that. Today you have a huge population of illiterates and people who can't read or write, so they can't use your actually smartphone. You got the network, you got the phones, maybe cheap, but they are not able to use it. So how do you create a service which will still meet the requirements? Is there a need for me to use the GUI to interact with the customers? So is there an opportunity there? Then there is, of course, I think briefly Dhanji spoke about the impact of social, mobile, and cloud on what's going to happen in our, the way we work, play, and live. The biggest thing, and I think one of the videos where the children were talking about how you need to really, customize your messages and communication to me as a child is very important. I think some of the things which the current way the organization are built and they exist, they're not capable to handle. One of the biggest thing is openness. Openness in organizations and openness in the way you interact with your customers, the way you, communicate to your customers is still a big area of, change and improvement for us. Corporations and large companies are designed in such a manner that communication is tailored, it's fixed, and it goes unidirectional, and the feedback is taken. But here is a set of new rules which are emerging where customers are going to decide about you even before you come to know about it. They don't even, you don't even know, and you don't have any wherewithal to know that they have made a decision about you, and you have no control over it. So could Maggie have done differently? Which was a good example of how things went wrong. It was a very good example of how large, very successful, very innovative companies, Nestle is one of the biggest in its brand. It's the innovator in many of its areas. It's the leader, and leader not just in India, but worldwide. In most of the markets they operate. But were they prepared to really look at an onslaught of SMC which has happened? I mean, the social mobile cloud, the way it acted, it clearly showed that worldwide they did not have the communication and a strategy around it to work around it. A lot of people blame that they should have had better PR agency. I personally believe it was not the fault of the PR company, because they have the best PR agencies who would have told within the 24 hours what to do, what to say. I mean, they're experts at this. But I think it was lack of the ability to use the social media technologies, which I think led them to where they went. And I mean, now you see just the change which is happening in Maggie. It is really amazing. The new CEO comes, he's just talking at this moment. He's just communicating. They are still probably not using the social mobile cloud, but they're at least in front of the media making statements, talking, and hopefully we'll maybe go back to eating Maggie again. So I think point I'm making is that companies like what we see and the companies you aspire to work for, because when I talk to the students of SITM, they would want the big brands to come here. And the big brands, not only even in the social media sector, they are very good in talking about their technology to others. But are they prepared for such a, eventuality which is going to happen? So that could be one area where you could, build careers and future service lines. So a very interesting, I spent a few years back in the Valley at the Stanford University, and I was really lucky to be there. So I asked, so Robert Bergelman was the executive director of that particular, graduate school of business. Amazing 3 months I spent there. So, these people like these, they are very used to teaching private companies like us what to do, so what is strategy, how do you market your products, what are the challenges you are facing, these are the right tools. And they've evolved huge amount of models and tech, they've written books and all of that. So I asked Robert Bergelman is a 75-year-old professor. He's written almost 30, 40 books. And I asked Robert, tell me, what is the challenge which you are facing? Graduate School of Business, Stanford University, you must be having some problems. You're the #1 graduate school, or #1 or #2. They keep changing their ranks between Harvard, Stanford. They're sitting on some $40 billion worth cash reserves. They get few $100 million of alumni contribution every year. So what are the problems you're facing? So can we say that you can have really peaceful sleeps over the night, nothing's going to change for you in the life? So Robert said that, look, there is something which keeps us awake, and we really don't know how to tackle this. He said that as a graduate school of business, my biggest program is MBA. People from world over come, they aspire, they try, and they fight to get into this graduate school of business, and we can proudly claim and arrogantly that when we admit students, they are the best in the world. They're the most intelligent, more capable, most competent, and we ensure that our admission process is such that we have the best of students who enter my school here, and they go on to become great people. So the Nike, for example, ad which we saw just now in the first panel, the Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike, was actually a student of Graduate School of Business in Stanford. He donated $500 million or $1 billion, and which is still they are finding ways to spend it. So he said, my biggest thing which keeps me awake is that the number of students in my MBA who are dropping out is increasing year by year. It has still not reached an alarm stage. That means there are a number of students who work all their student life to study and fight the world competition to get into an admission into an MBA. They come into the campus, they get into the class, they start the class, and after 6 months or after 1 year, they realize this is not what we signed for in this life, or there is something happening in the valley which is inspiring them, and they drop out. So that amazing number was reaching almost 10% during the height of the startup activity which is happening in the Silicon Valley. So when I remember during these conversations, I asked another person, tell me why this valley can't be created elsewhere? What is so special about these 200 square miles, north of, San Francisco, going right up to Santa Cruz? They're just 200 square miles, and most of your innovations are there. That is where your Google, Apple, take any name, it's based out of there. And whatever experiments you see in India on the startup side are all photocopies of the models which have got invented there. So what is that which makes that valley so different than rest of the, and why is it has succeeded while rest of the campuses around or such experiments have failed? So even if you look in US, there is no other Silicon Valley. There's a lot of activity happening in New York and Virginia side, but nothing comes very close to the valley. And if you look at the history of the valley, the money never was there. The money was actually in New York, where your banks and the Wall Street was there. Money moved from there to the valley. And then likewise, there have been a lot of other examples. Bangalore is one of them we keep hearing, and there's a lot of good work happening there. The famed Gangnam district of South Korea, Seoul, is actually one of the, again, hotbed of startup activity. It got popular for something else by that song. So likewise, I think there are such hotbeds in China, but nothing is coming very close to Silicon Valley. So one of the professors articulated it very well. He said that, look, I travel world over as an advisor, mentor. I am sitting on the boards of many companies, and a lot of people take my advice. So he said that every time I go and meet a prospective client outside the valley, typically the first point of discussion is a 4-page document, or it can be a 40-page document called NDA, non-disclosure agreement. That's the first thing the client asks me to sign before they get me on board. It's standard practice, whether it's in New York, whether it is in Seoul, Bangalore, anywhere else, if I'm coming on board as an advisor, mentor, or even if they want to just share some idea and they want to seek my feedback. But nowhere, it never happens in the valley. In the valley, what it happens is somebody will catch me, hey, professor, I have an idea, can we discuss it? We sit across the hallway, or we'll sit in the garden, or we'll sit in a coffee shop and discuss the idea. NDA is eventually the document which happens at the last, and you would have had the access to the complete business model. You would have heard, understood from this person who's got the idea. So that openness which I'm talking about is what the social mobile cloud is about, and what we saw those kids. And I think as a generation, we are finding it very difficult to reconcile that people who are in that, what we call as a digital natives, people who were born after 1985, that's one of the ways in which digital native is being described. But I have my own views which are very different that because I know a lot of old people who are probably more digital savvy than the young kids. And I think that openness is something which large companies will have to start embracing. And I think that's where we see the whole impact of this whole digitization which is impacting. It is not just about selling more goods. It's about little more cultural things which are happening. It is the societies which are changing. So societies 30 years from now, 50 years from now will be very different than what we are now. Typical way, the parents today react, hey, look at my kids, they are not social at all. They're always glued on to this device or to the TV. They don't communicate, they don't speak. They don't go out and play. They don't go and meet people. Look, my generation, we are so more social. We got people coming to our drawing rooms. We talk. We do a lot of things together, X, Y, Z, and all of that. That is our view of the digital natives. And look at the way the digital natives think. The digital native is telling the other person, hey, you know what? My parents are so unsocial people. You know what? They have only those 10 friends they hang around with. Every Saturday, Sunday, we do the same, 10 families, 20 families. But look at me, how social I am. I've got 500, people. I know what they're doing every morning, afternoon, evening. I share pictures, I share everything. So the whole concept of what is social is changing so fast. And I think that's also impacting how companies are going to change, and they have to change. Look at one small element of BYOD, bring your own device. And the reason I'm saying is that if you lose your smartphone, you can feel really isolated. I don't know if it has happened, but if you are a digital active, if you lose your smartphone, you can really spend an agonizing 12, 24, 48 hours till you get a new SIM, till you get again back onto that whole thing. So the devices which I bring, when I come to an organization, into an office, I'm not just bringing my body, mind, soul. I'm bringing this device, and I'm going to use this device for office work, for communication and things like that. How do the companies react to this? And I know that today's younger generation, there have been instances written where students take a decision not to join a company because they don't have a BYOD policy, because my devices are not allowed. I only have to use on a desktop which the company gives, right? So those are the, I think, new areas where a lot of innovation is happening. I think it's still at the nascent stage. Anybody wanting to build careers around that will have a healthy next 15, 20 years of great time in this thing. The other is the congregation aggregation models. I think that's really changing the whole e-commerce, mobile commerce, what will happen to the traditional brick and mortar story. 2 days back, one of the CEOs, or in fact, he's the business owner of an automotive company, I don't want to name here the name, was on the headlines of the newspaper saying that companies like Uber are going to kill the automotive industry. I don't know how many of you see this particular, it was quite a well-covered article, and I was surprised to see a statement being covered right on the front pages. So this gentleman said, companies like Uber is going to kill automotive industry. So look at the way the automotive industry defined themselves for the last 100 years. What business are you in? I'm in the business of transportation. Did they answer that way? They did not. They said, look, I'm in the business of making, manufacturing cars or vehicles or trucks or whatever they are manufacturing. So your entire focus of an organization, you may be a $50 billion company, is focused on how to make those vehicles smart. Higher fuel efficiency, they must be working on it. Can I get 2 kilometers more per liter? Or can I make more compact? Or can I make more feature? There's more feature, more electronics in the car. But here's the CEO of a company who's saying that my entire industry, all what I've done is at the verge of getting wiped out, not wiped out, but it's at a challenge in terms of growth by one small company out of Valley who has no cars. He calls himself as an internet company. But what are they trying to focus on? Uber is working on a bigger issue, which is transportation. So it's very important for us to look at the challenges which people face. Transportation was a big challenge which we have in especially urban cities because of the whole, the way the current infrastructure is. And I think People in government also realize that they can't ban Uber because Uber is good for overall, good for the country overall. Uber. They have to find the way out, and they're finding their way out. And very clearly, the central government stayed away from this entire controversy of Uber. They allowed it to be settled by individual state, governments, and I think most of the state governments have accepted Uber as. So that's the congregation aggregation model. And if you look at around all the innovation which is happening, where the startup and the entire evaluation is coming on, is on the congregation, aggregation model. Mobile groceries, 5 years back, nobody could have imagined that I could, order my stuff on mobile. I don't know how prevalent it is in Pune. I've not been following this market, but I can tell you in Gurgaon, it has now become a craze. I mean, and it started as a very simple problem. So, like Uber started with a simple problem. And by the way, the inspiration of Uber was not actually to solve the transportation problem of the world. If you speak to the founder of the Uber, he said that, look, I have to travel at 6 a.m. from in the Silicon Valley, 45 minutes to go to the airport. And I wanted to, and it was a very boring ride for me. Can I share that ride with someone? And that is the way the journey started. And in the first journey, the founder went to the airport. He gave lift to somebody who was a musician. And during that trip, they actually played music, and it was most interesting trip for him to an airport, which are usually very boring trips because you are half sleepy early in the morning. And that gave birth to, Uber. In the same way, mobile grocery again, is got born because of somebody who doesn't want to do grocery shopping. I mean, it's really waste of time. It's painful. That's what the people thought. And now it is really catching up. And I think what's going to be interesting to see is that how is going to impact, let's say, the mom and pop retail stores. They are sitting on the sideline trying to understand, "Arey, ab kya kare?" So the mom and pop retail stores were very, they've been attacked on both the sides. At one side was their modern retail. Modern retail is the stores which are air conditioned, like your supermarts and big bazaars of the world. Right, and Big Bazaar 5 years back or 3 years back said, we will take over entire, retail. No, there's no need for you to go to your mom and pop store. You will come to, we'll give you a shopping experience which you can't really get in a mom and pop show. That was the whole USP of a modern retail. They didn't understand the customer doesn't want that experience. If I want to enjoy a shopping experience, I'll go to a mall, I will go to this air-conditioned mall and do different things, buy luxury, or even that's now, of course, getting done on the mobile and things like that. So we'll have to understand what are the real, needs for that. So the biggest threat to this grocery is again a technology company. It's a congregation aggregation model, which is what is at the heart of disruption today. And then there is a lot of experiments happening. Fastos is one company, but there's a lot of happening on the restaurant side also. Can you be in a food business? Sorry? Yes, that's it. Can you be in a food business without being in the food business? Like in the sense, without to do with food. I mean, while I work for Aircel for my living, I also work with some of these startups. And it was very interesting that there's a company called Eatonomist. I don't know if you've heard about it. Maybe you will hear very soon. They're just waiting for some funding to come. Eatonomist doesn't own kitchen. It doesn't cook food. It's in food business. And you will never know who has made the food and all that. And it is high-end gourmet cuisine we are talking about. Typically till now, high-end gourmet cuisine is completely associated with either a restaurant, a Bukhara or something like that, or a chef, Sanjeev Kapoor, But here's a company which is coming and said, no, I'm not a Bukhara, I'm not a chef, I don't have kitchens, I want to manage utensils, things like that. This is what is going to happen. So these are the changes which are, impacting on today's life. And I think all the traditional businesses really need to think about how this whole congregation aggregation model is going to impact them. So they are on the attack from SMC side, the social mobile cloud, which is going to impact them because they don't know what the customer is thinking about them, right? And there's no way they can understand it, they can't influence it. On the other side, there is this whole congregation aggregation model where they don't even take into consideration those competition, which is kind of eating away their, business. Right, so that's, I think, the challenges which these people are facing. But I think more important, if you look at the social side, and if you want to look for solutions, where would be the next innovation like Uber will come or things like that, and where would the next evaluation will come? I think they will all come if you are trying to answer some of the social challenges which the world faces. And I thought I can share with you some of my own thoughts. They may be right, they may be relevant, they may be irrelevant, only time will tell. One big one, I believe, is the de-urbanization or urbanization. Uh, Connectivity should help us to de-urbanize today's centers. You can't have, I mean, if nothing is done, in 20 years' time, you will have more than 60% of the population living in urban centers. And that's something you can't afford because your infrastructure is not there. So somewhere the ICT should help us to de-urbanize. And I believe we will see a lot of that happening with the initiatives which this government has taken, whether it is Smart City or whether it is the NOFN project. Let's hope the NOFN project really goes and gets implemented this time. It somehow has it failed to take over last time when the Congress government was running it. But hopefully this time they should be able to get it. And I think that's where the digital technology will help us to de-urbanize, take the entire innovation and the services to the really rural markets. Africa sets an example for this, by the way. If we just go to Africa and learn and implement here, we will be better off. Africa has all kinds of problems. In fact, if you look at it, what are the key reasons for urbanization? The key reasons for urbanization is growth, is opportunity. Basically, I'm on the rural side, I don't have the opportunity. That's one. Second could be, I don't want to live that social, traditional life which is there in the village, so I want to go into a bigger city because there is this kind of an experience I can get. But what actually happens, very few people get that opportunity. Most of the people who move from rural to urban are actually living in the fringes of the whole society, right? So if we can help, break the whole movement of people from the rural side to the urban centers, I think that would be a big area of innovation where you will see a lot of wealth being created in the future. Right, and good example again is many cities. I'll give you an example in US, Detroit City. It is the first city in the world which said, we don't want, they actually contracted their city circumference. So Detroit, few years back, announced that if it was, let's say, 200 square miles, they said Detroit City is now only 100 square miles because they did not have people wanting to live there. The city was decaying, and the people were moving into the countryside, and they were moving into the suburbs. And such a movement, we believe, that was the first good example of how de-urbanization has happened. Of course, it was not forced by ICT or other things. It was because the whole car industry went down, and Detroit as a manufacturer of cars, I mean, it doesn't even exist now. I went to the Ford factory in Detroit. They only make the 707 pickup trucks. No longer is cars are being made there. But why should commercial companies like us be interested in de-urbanization? These are the social themes, in de-urbanization, in going to the hinter towns and hinter things. So is there a money to be made? I feel that's a big challenge which commercial organizations face. How do you debate? You have a shareholder whom you have to go every quarter and tell that, look, I'm doing better than you, otherwise you'll get sacked as a CEO, right? You have to report back. It's like, you're reporting to your manager. So today's the way and I think most of the innovations then hence will come from private companies and not listed companies. Listed companies will always be under pressure to think this month, this quarter, and perhaps maybe this year. There are very few companies who can think beyond this year at the operational level. And hence, but if the people are moving on urban side, to the rural side, and if the opportunities of tomorrow are being created there, I think it will make worthwhile for enterprises to make investments to reap there. Right, so I think serving the bottom of the pyramid is very important, and I think a lot of money and wealth can be created there. There are other themes like M2M, automatic meter reading, and all of that I think was probably discussed yesterday or is getting discussed in the later part of the day today. I have some thoughts on mobile banking and mobile commerce, the business which I kind of run for Aircel at the moment, but I think we have a session in the second part, I think, so just subsequent to this one, so I'll reserve my thoughts for there. But there's a very exciting thing happening on this whole payment side, mobile banking side. I think that's again going to be a whole revolution, which is going to change the way we, see this whole business. And your service provider, your competition can come from anywhere. Right, and both are highly regulated industry. The financial industry is regulated by RBI. There is a TRAI wants to understand how this whole mobile banking happens. They are trying to get into the RBI. I'm sure sooner or later they're going to step into the foot of RBI, and RBI is not going to like it, and RBI is going to step into the foot of. So it's going to be interesting to see how these two regulators itself actually involve and engage with each other. And I'm into some of these conversations which are very interesting. And it is changing, it is very dynamic. So standing here, if I can say that I can predict what's going to happen tomorrow, I'll be a fool, right? So I think those were the general themes and thoughts which I thought I can share with you. And if time is available, I'm very happy to have a little more interactive sessions. Maybe I could invite thoughts, comments, any questions which you would like to ask me. And I'm sure we can always have private conversations. I'm there for the rest of the day. But if there's anything which you would like to ask or comment, and I'll be very happy. So anybody would like to ask any questions, they can stand up. And I don't know if there are mics which can then go there. Yeah, there's a gentleman here. You'd want to ask? Yeah.
So my question is, you mentioned about competition. As in, Uber giving a competition to automotive companies.
Yeah.
You also mentioned about, good afternoon, sir. Good morning, sir. My name is Vivek, and my question is, you mentioned about competition, basically competition from unthought of sectors. Sectors like Uber being a competition to automotive companies. Similarly, payment banks could be a competition to the ordinary banks that are operating till date. So what, according to you, in the 5 years is basically more important? Either is it consolidation or is it convergence? Or is it a combination of both? What is it?
So I think it's both actually, consolidation and convergence. But the way the payment bank and telecoms currently work under highly regulated environment. So what a traditional bank can do, what a payment bank can do is very regulated. The rules are very, very strictly mentioned there. So the ability of innovation is not there. Currently, there is no innovation happening. So I'll give you an example. Maybe I thought I would reserve it for the second half, but I can give you an example. Cryptocurrency today is not allowed by RBI. Obviously, RBI doesn't understand so much about cryptocurrency as the innovators understand. If you would love to do some research, do a company on Ripple, it's called Ripple, I think. Very interesting stuff they're doing. So what makes human beings different than animals? There are many reasons, mind, soul, we can think, all of that. But there is a very interesting thing I read was, one of the interesting ways a human being is different than animals is imagination, right? So I give you a 100 rupee note. It is a piece of paper for an animal, but for you, it is the most valuable document. You keep it inside. Why? Because you can imagine. An animal can't imagine. You can imagine that this 100 rupee note, I can do a lot of things. I can buy a lot of experiences. I can trade it for something else, right? Why can't you imagine this for something like cryptocurrency? So I will say, why can't you hold your money in airtime? Why can't you hold money in virtual accounts? And why do you need real money? Why do you need dollars or rupees, right? So a lot of that innovation currently is stifled or is held very closely because the regulators, not just RBI, regulators around the world don't understand. And they don't, and many of the regulators, while they understand, they don't want to disturb the current systems. If innovation has to run rule, your banking industry could collapse, right? So I think at this moment, whatever innovation you will see will get highly regulated, at least in India. And that's why I believe that the telecom and the financial markets of Africa will always be ahead of India. And the same would be true. They would probably be more advanced. Today in Africa, there are communities and societies where they have not seen how a currency looks like, right? Or they don't see many times in a month. I mean, we see currency every day. They don't see currency because they hold their entire salaries or money or earnings or whatever you may call in virtual accounts, virtual money. And that virtual money could be airtime. The virtual money could be 5,000 worth, credit points in Big Bazaar. Let's say Big Bazaar's credit 5,000. And how do you then interoperably change it? Can I say, hey, this, so you're telling me that today, hey, this shirt costs me 100 rupees or 500 rupees. You could always say, hey, this costs 300 rupees of airtime. So you give me 300 rupees of airtime, I'll give you this shirt, not 300 rupees cash. Right? So 300 airtime. So those are the changes which are going to happen. And it's going to be very amazing to see how both these technologies converge and how they will challenge the existing payment rails. Today's existing payment rails are dominated by, let's say, a Visa or a Master or your national payment switch and the local currencies. How's that going to change if tomorrow innovation is allowed? It is going to bring down, two things will happen. It is going to bring down your transaction costs. Currently today probably is between 2 to 5%. And it's going to bring enormous amount of speed. And that speed is something which regulators are scared of. They will not even understand, and transactions would have happened in nanoseconds. Yeah?
Good morning, sir. This is
Yeah.
Meenakshi from SITM. Sir, if I would like to draw your attention towards the Nestle India Maggie issue, there have been a lot of talks about the impact of social media, digitization of the world, and how social media is impacting the lives of every person in today's world. So if I would like to ask you if brand loyalty can, in a way downplay the impact of social media, because what we are seeing now is Nestle Maggie is trying to come back with the Miss You Too campaigns and stuff like that. So what are your opinions on that?
So I think I will ask one question. And if you can just, let me know your opinion as a collective ground here with just show of your hands. How many of you, if Maggie is available to you, would want to try it out? Or would you go back to it? Would you try it? I'm sure all of us. Oh my, that's amazing. I mean, look at that. I mean, I probably saw everybody raising their hands. I mean, what else is the brand loyalty? This is brand loyalty. And this is a great job done by Nestle in terms of brand loyalty. So where did they fail? They failed on using SMC. They failed to communicate. All of you raised your hands. I don't know whether you guys raised your hand because genuinely you have a brand product loyalty. See, the same, I always keep asking this question. What happened to Nestle if it had happened to some other brand? Not Nestle, because the market leader, but let's say a Yo noodles or there are so many of the other YY noodles or something else would have happened. I'm sure that brand would have been dead. Today, the brand loyalty, the product loyalty of Nestle Maggie noodles is so high that all of you raised your hands. And the only reason why you're not having it today is not because it has lead or you care about it, it's because it's not available in the markets. Right? So I think, yes, to some extent it can be done. But the problem is that you always have as you would have read in your MBA program, that you have the external stakeholders, and in any society, the external stakeholders and management of external stakeholders is very important. Large companies like like Nestle do a great job of managing external stakeholders like customers or their partners or their vendors. But how do you, as a Nestle, manage government affairs? How do you manage I know of so many multinational companies in India, and I work for a couple of them, who don't want to do anything with government. They don't even have a government affairs or regulatory affairs person. They don't, so in terms of crisis, how do you go? They say, no, we don't want to, we are MNC, because if we have a government relations, they will going to ask money, this will happen, that will happen, we are above law. But you're living in this ecosystem, government is, and your public is an important stakeholder, you need to have processes to manage that. I think that's why they failed. But yes, you made a valid point. Yes, if to some extent you can do it, but the moment you run against certain stakeholders like a regulator, your brand loyalty will not play any, because it's not allowed, so you will need to manage that. Yeah, there's a question here. The lady here has raised her hand. If somebody can bring the mic here.
Good morning, sir. I'm Jhuma Garg. Sir, I had a question around deurbanization. So, from a listed company's point of view, when we see India as a geographical area, so what are the issues which a company would think? Because in spite of, even in the rural areas, we have a lot of issues like social political issues, and in India, each state has a different issue. So, for a listed company, would it go ahead and experiment only on the basis of opportunities there, or what trade-off will it have to measure before it takes a decision of that level?
So I think there are 2 or 3 angles to it. One angle is the government regulation itself. Now the CSR regulation has come that companies who are making profit necessarily have to do something. 2% of your profit should go on your CSR initiatives, right? So at one side, the government is putting pressure. On the other side, there are companies who are picked up this to build brand, to build loyalty. You can pick up issues which will help you. Like, so I'll give you a cultural thing. In South Korea, I'm told, if you want brand loyalty, product loyalty, you should be seen as a company which is compassionate, which is involved in social change, which is social is an important part of it, corporate social responsibility. Some of these things are very, very important in Eastern Oriental economies. And I think that's also true for a lot here in India. So you'll find all the big companies also getting involved in some bit or other in some of these CSR policies, even before the government came with this policy. So I think the challenge which I was telling you was very different. Maybe if you were referring to the point which I made, that large companies which are listed would always be under pressure to report to the shareholders on a quarterly business basis the growth and things like that, and that's a big challenge, and hence they can't see any such investments of getting into the hinterlands will give you results over a period of time. It won't give you results in this quarter or next quarter or this year or next year. So do we have the wherewithal to make that investment for 5 years from now? And in a large, diversified, diversely held companies which are listed, that's a big challenge to run a shareholder, agenda or point of view. So that's there. But I think the combination of both the CSR and the government putting pressure, especially on some of the services, you'll find this whole deurbanization happening. I mean, even though we have not seen the results at this moment, big cities have continued to grow without any change. I mean, Delhi and Mumbai today are boasting of population more than 20-25 million. These population, if you go to Europe, they actually get surprised because some of the continent, some of the many countries put together doesn't have so much people, and they have an infrastructure which is 4 or 5 times better. Yeah, I think maybe last question because it's 11:15 and we are probably running late. Yeah. Yeah, who want to ask? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, we also get to hear that Google and Apple are making these driverless cars. And as you know, sir, these companies are already very well established and we know what they are doing. So, sir, this shift from one business to other business, will it ensure customer loyalty or will it cause the dilution of the companies?
It will depend how they position themselves. At this moment, these are all the experiments. Google is also trying to do a lot of other experiments, like Amazon is trying to do a lot of space exploration. These are, I think, very initial stages. But what Google does is it defines itself as an information company, right? And they are trying to use that information in such a manner that they want to have these next generation of driverless cars. And they are sitting on huge data, the Google Maps, the mapping data. So they're trying to leverage the existing wealth they have of information and resources to see which are the other industries they can disrupt. Right? Google is one of the big disruptors has been Google and Apple. I mean, 2 companies have disrupted many industries. And if you are a BMW CEO, how will you define your company's brand positioning? Anybody? Very quick one. We have only a couple of minutes, so. Anybody would like to hit it? What is the tagline of BMW? Sorry? Sheer pleasure of driving. So BMW says that when you drive my cars, the amount of pleasure you will have is unparalleled. Here is a company out of Valley which is not in cars, they don't manufacture cars. They are saying driverless cars. Why do you need to even drive? So just imagine what will happen to BMW if tomorrow you all say, I don't want to drive cars, and BMW is saying, hey, you drive my cars, you'll get unparalleled experience. So that's an interesting way. Let's see how that industry pans out. But it's an interesting thing to look at, because Google cars in US, in the valley where they operate in Nevada and other things, have proven that our accident rates of driverless cars is lower than your traditional accident rates of, they've just used the data of the last 1 year and they've proven it to the governments, and they're getting more and more permissions in more and more states in US, which is allowing these driverless cars. Right, thanks a lot. I think it's 11:15. I'm getting pointers here from two people who have to, ensure discipline is here. So I'll conclude, but it has been amazing. I would love to carry on these conversations on the sidelines. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir, for such a captivating session. I now invite my colleagues to felicitate sir with a memento as a token of our gratitude. Thank you, sir. Sir, I request you to kindly resume your seat amongst the audience.